Ancient Mesopotamia. Objectives: identify Mesopotamia, now Iraq, on a map of the world accurately. Examine the social classes in Mesopotamian society. Identify the inventions that brought about significant changes in Mesopotamia. Evaluate the inventions that brought about significant changes to agriculture in Mesopotamia. And finally, we're supposed to describe the religion, government, and law codes of the Mesopotamians. The word Mesopotamia means the land between rivers. When people say Mesopotamia, they are referring to a section of land in the Middle East between and around the Tigris and the Euphrates River. Today, this land is located mostly in the country of Iraq. There are also portions in southern Iran, southeastern Turkey, and northeastern Syria. On screen, we have a map showing the location of Mesopotamia. Ancient Mesopotamia is said to be the place where humans first formed civilizations. It was here that people first lived in large cities, learned to write, and created governments. Mesopotamia is often called the cradle of civilization. Early settlers in Mesopotamia started to gather in small villages and towns. As they learned how to irrigate land and grow crops on large farms, the towns grew bigger. Eventually, these towns became large cities. New inventions such as government and writing were formed to help keep order in the cities. The first human civilization was formed. Mesopotamian city-states. Babylon. The city of Babylon became the most powerful city in Mesopotamia. Throughout the history of the region, the Babylonians would rise and fall. At times, the Babylonians would create vast empires that ruled much of the Middle East. The Babylonians were the first to write down and record their system of law. Assyrians. The Assyrians came out of the northern part of Mesopotamia. They were a warrior society. They also ruled much of the Middle East at different times over the history of Mesopotamia. Much of what we know about the history of Mesopotamia comes from clay tablets found in Assyrian cities. Persians. The Persians put an end to the rule of the Assyrians and the Babylonians. They conquered much of the Middle East, including Mesopotamia. Sumer. The Sumerians were the first humans to form a civilization. They invented writing and government. They were organized into city-states where each city had its own independent government ruled by a king that controlled the city and the surrounding farmland. Each city also had its own primary god. Sumerian writing, government, and culture would pave the way for future civilizations. Akkadians. The Akkadians came next. They formed the first united empire where the city-states of the Sumer Empire were united under one ruler. The Akkadian language replaced the Sumerian language during this time. It would be the main language throughout much of the history of Mesopotamia. Inventions. Let us start with irrigation. Sumerians developed a system for controlling the flow and direction of water from the rivers. Canals and irrigation ditches were built to redirect the water to the fields. Among the many inventions of the Mesopotamians were the wheel, mass-produced ceramics, mathematics, time, writing, cylinder seals and envelopes, mass-produced bricks, cities, the map, and the sail. Mesopotamian religion. Mesopotamian religion was polytheistic, worshipping over more than 2,000 different gods, many of which were associated with the specific city-states within Mesopotamia such as Sumer, Akkad, Ashur, Nineveh, and Babylon. Some of the most significant of these gods were Anu, Enlil, Ashur, Marduk, etc. Some historians claim that Mesopotamian religion is the world's oldest faith, although there are several other claims to that title. On screen, we have an image depicting the social structure of ancient Mesopotamia. On top of the pyramid, we have kings, then we have priests and government officials and scribes, then we have craftsmen, merchants, civil servants, women who were priestesses or nobility, then we have farmers, laborers, and women, and at the bottom of the pyramid we have enslaved people. Early on, priests held the most power, but as city-states expanded, secular kings were at the top of the social pyramid. Priests became advisors who communicated with the gods. The upper class had government officials and scribes. The middle class had soldiers and workers like craftsmen, merchants, civil servants, and women who were educated or priestesses. The lower class had farmers, laborers, and women who did housework or weaving. Enslaved people had no rights. Mesopotamian government. The Mesopotamians arguably invented the centralized state and developed kingship. Cities were political focal points as well as urban center, and leadership was passed on by kingly dynasties. As Mesopotamian culture developed, its city-states coalesced into kingdoms. There were also many civil servants. One of the highest positions was the scribe, who worked closely with the king and the bureaucracies, recording events and tallying up commodities. Temples provided welfare service and protected widows and orphans. The earliest forms of protecting the poor, widows and orphans was found in Ur and dates to around 2000 BC. The Code of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi was one of the earliest and most complete written legal codes and was proclaimed by the Babylonian king Hammurabi, who reigned from 1792 to 1750 BC. Hammurabi expanded the city-states of Babylon along the Euphrates River to unite all of southern Mesopotamia. The Hammurabi Code of Laws, a collection of 282 rules, established standards for commercial interactions and set fines and punishments to meet the requirements of justice. Hammurabi's code was carved onto a massive finger-shaped black stone steel pillar that was looted by invaders and finally rediscovered in 1901.